Hey, blessings. Welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. I got to tell you right off the bat, this is like my second, third, fourth take of this, trying to get this down below 7 minutes because it's really important. So I'm going to try one more time. Today I read is 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 1, all the way through to chapter 10, verse 13, and then 2 Chronicles chapter 7, starting in verse 11 and going through chapter 9, verse 12. Two law enforcement takeaways. The first one I'm going to hit real quick. 1 Kings chapter 9 verse 4. God tells Solomon that he needs to have integrity of heart like his father David did. David's heart was not divided at all times. Now, as human beings, we sin. We're going to sin. If you think you live a life without sin, or I think I live a life without sin, we are lying to ourselves and we're lying to God. It's going to happen. Our heart's going to get divided, but we've got to protect it and do the best we can to keep it from getting divided. Integrity is whole. It means unity, unified. It is not divided. But when we're trying to serve God and then our heart is divided by something else, that is a lack of integrity in our hearts. And the opposite of integrity is hypocrisy. We don't want to be hypocrites. Let your heart be totally dedicated to following God. Integrity of heart. Okay, the second one I want to get into, and this is where I keep going over time, 1 Kings chapter 10 verse 9 and 2 Chronicles chapter 9 verse 8. These two are the same, but it is so important, and I've used this so many times in devotionals and Bible studies for law enforcement officers because it's incredible. Listen to this. This is what Queen Sheba tells Solomon after she has realized that, yes, it is true, he has this great wisdom, and it's even greater than she had heard reports of. And so once she realizes this, her statement to Solomon is, and this one's out of 1 Kings, "Blessed be the Lord your God who delights in you, to set you on the throne of Israel, because the Lord loved Israel forever. Therefore, he made you king to do justice and righteousness." Again, we've talked about this. I believe that if you're a law enforcement officer, especially if you're a street officer, you are a leader of your community. You're the guy people call when they're in trouble, when they're in need, when they've lost control, when they're crying out for help and call 911. They expect you to show up. You are the leader, and they look to you. They expect you to write tickets to people who run stop signs or run red lights, because those intersections, they don't want to be driving through them and get plowed into and killed, or somebody in their family get hurt. So they look to you. And if you are called, and let me just take a second, do you feel like you're called into this profession of law enforcement? If the answer is yes, let me pose this to you. The reason you were called into law enforcement is this: to do justice and righteousness in your community. Okay? We're called to bring about God's rule. In the Lord's Prayer, it says, "Your kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And part of this doing God's will on earth as it is in heaven is to present or represent his rule, his justice. And when you're a law enforcement officer called by him into your community, realize this: you were called and put there for this reason, to do justice and righteousness in his way. So, incredible law enforcement takeaway. If you have questions or you want to discuss this further, or I've said something that you're not quite sure about, email me, chuck@fcpo.org. And I look so forward to hearing from you. Even if you just email me to say hi, let's get a conversation going. Use this 1 Kings 10:9. Tell your brothers and sisters in law enforcement what God has said and what he expects. And if they have questions, give them my email address. Point them to these videos, and man, let's start sharing God and his good news and his plan of justice with other law enforcement officers. What a great opportunity for us that he has given us, and he's blessed us with this, just like Sheba says. Blessed be the Lord your God who delighted in you. God delights in you, men and women of law enforcement. He is proud of you and what you're doing, as long as you're doing it in the correct manner. Establish justice, establish righteousness. So, tomorrow's read. Again, awesome stuff. First Kings chapter 4. Then we're going to jump to chapter 10 and read verses 14 through 29. Go to Second Chronicles and read in chapter 1, verses 14 and 17. Just 3 verses. Then jump to chapter 9 and read verses 13 to 28. And then go read Psalm 72. That's a lot, but each one of these sections is very tiny. So there's a lot in there. End with Psalm 72. Come back tomorrow and let's discuss them and see what the law enforcement takeaways are. So be blessed. See you tomorrow.